The following is a JourneyWise Network production.
Sometimes we overcomplicate the joy of Jesus. Sometimes we make it a little bit more complex than it has to be. That's what we're talking about this season, in experiencing finding the joy of Jesus, choosing cheer in life's everyday, ordinary moments. And today's guest is awesome at that. She gives us little tips and tricks for how to experience the joy of Jesus in our everyday lives, whether that's making a little bit of a big deal out of holidays or birthdays, or inserting fun and joy into maybe seemingly ordinary moments. Laurel Donahoo is with us today on the show, and I know you are going to be blessed by our conversation. Let's jump in. Hey friends, welcome back to the Choosing Cheer podcast. I'm Nicolet Bell, your host, and it's my joy that you have joined us today as we continue on our journey of choosing cheer. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Laurel Donahoo, and I am so excited that she is here to talk to us a little bit about just finding the joy of Jesus in everyday life. So Laurel, I was kind of telling you earlier, I feel like you and I are what the definition maybe of Instagram friends. We have mutual friends. We have been following each other for a while. So I feel like I kind of know you a little bit, but we really don't know each other that well. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation to get to know you better. And I know our guest will as well. So as we get started, just start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Laurel Miller Donahoo. I'm from the Madison Ridgeland area. We kind of moved a couple of times growing up, but I'm native to the greater Jackson area. I graduated high school from Jackson Prep and went to Mississippi State, where I met my husband, Price. He's a Delta boy from Belzona, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And we got married right after he graduated from law school. And that was in 2009. So I guess that's been 14 years. We have 3 kids, a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old, or almost 8. Our 7-year-old turns 8 in about 2 weeks.
Oh, exciting.
Yes, so it's boy, girl, boy, Wilson, Lily, and Dempsey. We've got 3 dogs, a guinea pig, a bearded dragon, and some fish. So we have lots of animals over here to keep things exciting. But I currently, I would say my full-time job besides mothering and wifing is
and animaling, I think we could add in there.
Yes, is being an influencer on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
although I really don't love that term because I feel like we're all influencers in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been fortunate enough to be able to monetize that, which I do not take lightly, because I realize that my followers listen to me, and it's kind of a lot to think about sometimes.
Weighty.
Also, I try to be super transparent and honest and have fun and just share little joys all along the way. And I also do part-time social media management for a store in town. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I think.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it sounds like you definitely have a lot going on, a lot that you are balancing and working through. So I think sometimes that is when we have a lot of kids, a lot of things going on, jobs that we're managing. It's sometimes the joy gets lost in all of the busyness. It can seem that is the case. So this season on the podcast, we're talking a lot about choosing cheer in life's everyday, ordinary moments, the moments that are non-remarkable in our Instagram society, right? We love the things that are flashy that we can post and that people are going to comment on and things that are exciting. But our reality as followers of Jesus is that most of our life is just pretty regular. It's just pretty mundane, and it's feeding the bearded dragon or whatever it might be, right? In your daily routine. So when you and I were talking about preparing for this conversation. You mentioned to me how much joy you received in just decorating for Christmas at the end of last year. And so you said that's going to kind of catapult you into maybe doing a little bit more decorating. And you talked about kind of framing that in the way that you want to raise your children. And so talk to us a little bit about that because I was really encouraged just in our exchange about that. I want to know more.
Yes. Okay. So I have always just been a huge Christmas fanatic. I love everything about Christmas. So I decorate a lot for Christmas here at the house. And as I was taking things down a couple of weeks ago, I told my husband that a friend of mine mentioned doing that she does a Valentine's tree where she leaves like the pink and purple and red ornaments on it and just leaves it up till Valentine's Day. And I was like, I kind of love that idea, but I don't want to use a green tree because I feel like that's a little too Christmas.
Yeah.
So I ordered a white tree and it's supposed to be here today by 10 o'clock, Amazon tells me. And so I pulled aside all of our red and purple and pink ornaments from Christmas. And then my daughter and I have made a paper chain to put on the tree and set aside some white lights. So I'm really excited to hopefully get that tree put together in the next day or two. But a couple of years ago, I started making felt banners. I don't really know what got me into that, but I've made several little felt banners that say different things. I actually just put one above our bed yesterday that says "That's amore," which is love in Italian. And I put one above our mantle that says "We love because he first loves us," or loved us. So those are kind of some Valentine's decorations that we've had for a couple of years, but I really just want to take Valentine's to a next level with the tree. And then on Valentine's morning, I love just having the table with their breakfast set fully for.
Oh, how fun is that? I've never thought about that. That's so cute because it's a
I,
school day. It's like, what do
yes,
you do most of the time? Yeah.
it's so much fun. I try to make a big deal about holidays and birthdays and days that are special. Like we're just coming out of the 2-day school cancellation because of the ice. So even though I really needed to be doing some work for the store that I help with social media on, I kind of just had to make myself put my phone aside and step outside and put the gloves on and put the hat on and go outside and throw ice on the frozen lake because we never get to see that. So,
Right.
trying to find just the wow and the whimsy and the joy in the day that we have today. Because not that I didn't kind of feel a little bit guilty about not getting as much work done as I had originally planned. But we have to really seize the moments that we have, especially when our kids are little. So going back to your original question, I am trying to just add as much whimsy and fun and joy as I can into every day. And not every day is magical or whimsical. But when there's an opportunity to, add a little something or surprise the kids with fresh bread when they get home, or the past couple of nights we've done candlelit dinners at the dining table. We never eat at the dining table, but because of the ice storm and not really being able to get out, I was able to clean out my pantry and cook a lot of stuff that's kind of just been sitting there, and B, set the dining room table and let my kids help set the table and light the candles and just sit here for an hour and eat and laugh. And because we usually have basketball on Mondays, baseball on Tuesdays, church on Wednesdays, and
Yeah.
what was happening. So we were able to really just capture those moments that we don't always have. So you have to be intentional about looking for it, but I really do feel like there's whimsy and joy everywhere you look if you try to find
That's
it.
so good. That's so good. I think so often I served in youth ministry and kids ministry previously at local churches, a couple of different local churches here in the Jackson area. And I think so much pressure is being put on our kids to grow up really faster than they were ever intended to. And so I love that thought of creating that whimsy, that joy, and recognizing that that's from our Creator, that He is the one who delights in that and allows us to delight in that. And so when we have those moments with our families, when we're intentional about that, we're really teaching them about the character of God and who He is, and that quality of Him that wants to delight us and wants to enchant us, right? And so
Yes.
that's such a gift, and we're being intentional about not, not pressuring our kids, but allowing them to live in the joy because they really do see things through those childlike eyes. And Jesus teaches us that those are the ones who are going to get in my kingdom, not the ones who are distracted by all these other things. And we so often put that on our kids instead of creating atmospheres for them to be, to really just enjoy each other, enjoy us, enjoy God's creation. That's such a beautiful picture. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, well, thanks. And I was listening to some of your past episodes and the story about your daughter just every single morning coming downstairs and just awing at the Christmas decorations almost made me cry because
Mm,
really, like, those are the things that our babies are going to remember when they're grown up. They're not going to remember us hustling. Well, they might, but maybe not in such a positive light. Hustling them into the
right.
car to get to baseball, and then after baseball, we got to run through Jimmy John's and grab a sandwich and get home and get bathed and do homework and get in bed.
Hmm.
And although all of those things are good and necessary to grow our children into well-rounded individuals, we really do have to like be intentional to carve out time to enjoy the whimsy and the joy.
Right, right. And that teaches them what our priorities are, right? Like
Yes.
by putting
It's
your
so
phone
true.
down the last 2 days, like you told your children with your actions, you are more important to me than my work.
Yeah.
They'll remember that.
I hope and pray.
And they'll remember it when we don't. Josie Lou's just to the age where she's starting to figure out, and I work from home. And so it's been a really good like thing as she was little. But now she comes up to, she says, Mama, no work. And she'll pull me away from my computer and try to close it. Like she knows when I'm distracted. And that has been a big thing for me is just trying to learn like, okay, so I need to separate where I'm working and I'm doing this, and then I'm going to close that, and everybody else can wait for a minute, and I'm going to give her my full and undivided attention. And that's really hard to do because we're so used to having our phones in our hands, and work is everywhere now.
It really is. There's no getting away from it. And it's so hard to create those boundaries. And I do think there's value in saying, okay, I need until 2:30 to really hone in and
Right,
get this done.
right.
Just give me a few minutes where I'm not having to mediate so I can do a good job at my work so I can put this aside and give you
Feel
all of
good
my.
about it. And yeah.
Yes. So I think that that helps teach our babies patience and just respect for others and others' needs. Because, I mean, we kind of have to work, in
Yeah,
order to do fun things. So
right.
there's, it's hard to get it right all the time, but that's why you just have to take it day by day. Can't
Hmm.
plan too far ahead.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. So when we were talking about this, you also mentioned just finding joy in your marriage. I wonder if you would talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. Okay. So when we were chatting beforehand, I mentioned a quote that I ended up finding, and it says, "A happy childhood is perhaps the most fortunate gift in life." And it's a quote by Dorothy Richardson. I don't know who that is, but I
Mm,
love that quote. And that reminded me of a quote that a counselor in the area, his name is John Evans, shared with me one time when he was leading uh, a series in our life group about marriage. And he said that a strong marriage is one of the best gifts you can give your children because without even realizing it, a strong marriage is what gives them the biggest sense of security outside of
mm,
their relationship with Jesus. And a marriage is an earthly representation of God and His church, and that is such
yeah.
a big and beautiful picture that we as husbands and wives have the honor to show to our children. And it's the responsibility is kind of big if you really step back and think about it. But that's why I'm all about like little bits, like doing what we can today, and then we'll take tomorrow as it comes. But John mentioned, he said, you'll notice if you and your husband stand there and hug and just talk for a few minutes in the kitchen, chances are your kids are going to want to come get in on that hug too. And it's just innate that they want to be a part of the love and the security that they're seeing between the two of you. So not saying that my marriage is perfect at all, because of course we have our issues. But things that we try to do to kind of keep the everyday just joy alive is making coffee for each other, putting the toilet paper on the roll the right way. Nothing frustrates me more than toilet paper on the roll.
Right, right. That is so
Um,
funny.
we always say I love you before we hang up the phone. And we always kiss before either one of us leaves the house. And we try to hug and kiss our kiddos as well before we leave.
Mhm.
We pray together out loud as a couple, and we pray with our kids morning and night, before they go to school and before they go to bed, and just ask that that the Lord would bless us as His messengers as we go out the next day. I try to, I have twinkle lights in our bedroom above that's a more a sign. So I try to keep our bedroom just kind of a joyful haven of light and rest. Because my husband is an attorney, and he has to deal with things that just aren't super fun some days. So I want to be able to come home and just rest and enjoy where he is. So I work hard to try to keep our house, even though it's not always picked up and it's not always clean, just a place of rest. And I try to keep the kids from fighting a whole lot, especially when daddy is home, just so he can really enjoy home as a haven. And I don't know, I feel like that just kind of goes a long way in my relationship with my husband. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like so often we can hear that or people talk about that and we're like, ugh, we don't like that as like strong, independent females. Like, it's like, what do you mean I need to make this a play? But when you're a follower of Jesus and you're in a marriage that's mutually respecting and mutually loving each other and looking for ways to outdo one another in honor, it's a joy and a privilege to get to do that. It's not a chore.
It's
Uh,
fine.
right. And so that's our honor. It's our gift. It's our joy. And nothing you listed there was really complicated. Making coffee, making sure that it's just a warm and restful environment. And that is just some very simple things that we can do to really help strengthen our marriage. I think that's just a really good point. I think we need to, as followers of Jesus, we don't need to tune that out. We don't need to say, well, I'm strong and independent, so I don't need to do that for my husband. Like, whoa, let's rethink that. How do we do that? We can be strong and independent and still love and care for our spouses.
Right. And I just finished a Trinity study, and it talks about how, and I still don't understand the Trinity, even after spending like 14 weeks on it. But one thing I do understand is that God is love, and God Himself is a relationship. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And just this, I just kind of imagine the Trinity as just this cloud of love and respect. Like there's love and respect going all different directions. And I truly think that that is what a marriage should look like ideally. And again, that it takes work every single day. But just the joy that comes from a cloud of love and respect, the joy that comes from a godlike love is immeasurable.
Yeah, and taking things like Valentine's Day, that's a very can be like a very secular holiday, right? Like it seems like sometimes it's a marketing ploy to sell all the
Right.
different things, right? But really taking that and using that as an opportunity to teach our children, to teach, to be intentional in our marriages of going, okay, in this season, like let's focus on God's love, and so kind of using that to teach us and grow us. I want to comment, Laurel. You've made a couple of comments about being in today and really focusing on this day. And Jesus teaches that over and over again, but we so often either live in the past or the future. What is it in your life that's really taught you that lesson?
Um, well, I gotta give credit to one of my old life group leaders. His name was Wade Ward. He is the kindest, just most gentle person. But he said that every morning before his feet hit the ground, he prays that the Lord would give him a kingdom mindset that day,
Mm,
just for that day. He said, I'm not asking for the Lord to give me a kingdom mindset for the whole rest of my life because today might be the last day of that. We
mm,
really truly never know. Um, so ever since then, I have tried to ask the Lord to give me a kingdom mindset before I even get out of bed. I actually recently renamed my alarm Kingdom Mindset just
oh,
to
see, that's so great. What a simple
remind me I'm
thing that
too
prompts
tired
you
to
to
get
pray.
up. Yes, so that the title of my alarm helps to remind me that I need to pray for the Lord to use me as He wishes in this one day. Because if you think too far ahead, it's straight up overwhelming.
Mhm,
Um, and it can be exciting, but it can also be stressful. Um,
mhm,
so, really, just making the most of what you have, which is the present, is that's become so important to me. Um, and it kind of, a lot of people talk about work life balance and trying to keep things balanced, but I'm more of a rhythm person because balance is
Yeah.
really so easily thrown off if you really think about it. Um, so some days the rhythm may be more geared towards uh, getting caught up on laundry, getting caught up on dishes, vacuuming, you know, changing the sheets. And it's easy to find joy in those when you have prayed for a kingdom mindset. But then other days, the rhythm is shifted more towards, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to batch out all this content so I can take 2 or 3 days off of content creation because that's
Mhm.
what a day in the life of an influencer looks like is creating fun content, which is also a joy. Um, but just trying to kind of make the most of what you have in a day. And I'm not going to try to sit down and batch out a bunch of content on days that all three of my kids are home. That's something that
Mhm.
I try to do on the days that they're all three at school.
Mhm.
And then on days when they're all home, I can kind of do chores with them around, but then also try to sneak in a little bit of fun too.
Mhm.
But really, for everybody, no 2 days are the same, but living in that day is what's most important to me.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. So, what do you think it is that, if you had to point to a couple of things in your own life that steal your joy or steal your cheer, what would you say those things are?
Oh, social media,
Mm-hmm.
the doom scroll. And I hate to say that because there really can be so much joy found in social media. That's how we've connected.
Right.
Um,
We
so,
wouldn't be having this conversation without it.
right,
Yeah.
there is a ton of great and good and God honoring things that are happening on social media, but it's also very easy to fall into the trap of comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's easy to put on our imposter syndrome wear and pretend that we're something that we're not. So I think that there are a lot of traps there in social media.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so honestly, not too long ago, I kind of had to go through and unfollow a few accounts that were not like it almost like made me seize up when I saw them coming up in my feed just because I knew it was going to be drama or gossip or something that is not life giving. So even though I love these people and I wish them the best, sometimes an unfollow is just the best thing you can do for reducing the comparison and the negative messages going in. Because
Hmm.
obviously, I love social media.
Yeah.
It's my job.
Yeah.
Uh, but you have to be careful, and you have to know yourself, and you have to know your limits and pay attention to those.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good. That's really, really a good reminder for people. So the last thing I want to ask you is what are a few practical steps you think people can take to experience the joy of Jesus in our everyday lives? And we've talked a little bit about it, but let's say, okay, somebody's listening and they have liked some of these things that they've said. How do they really get started um, in just choosing more cheer?
Yeah, I love that question. I really think the first thing that comes to mind is one, praying before you get out of bed.
Mm.
Because really, God is the author of our lives and He already knows what's going to happen. So may as well talk to Him first. And then usually I try and I find that it's been a really wonderful practice for me and I think for my family just because of the overflow of it. After I get up and make my coffee, I try to go sit and just spend a few minutes with the Lord. Sometimes it's just 5 or 10. Sometimes it's an hour, depending on how many times I hit snooze that morning. um,
Hmm.
but trying to give my first fruits to the Lord, even if it's just 5 minutes, like I said, just chatting with Him, praying, really, I think is the best way to start any day. And if you ask Him for joy, really and truly, I think He's going to help you see it everywhere you look and
Mm.
everywhere you go, and even in the unloading of the dishes, which is just the worst. Like there are ways that He will remind us what a joy it is to get to cook for and feed a family of five. Not everybody
Mhm.
has that, and I am blessed to have that. So just He realigns my thoughts and helps me smile even when I'm doing something that I just really wouldn't choose to do if I didn't have to do it. you know.
Yeah, to pray for joy. I wonder how often we do that. It seems like we come to God and we ask Him for things that we just really feel like we need, right? If we are hurting and we need healing, or if somebody we love is needs healing, or if we need help with this relationship, or those kind of things. But do we just ask Him for more of His joy? That is so wonderful. I think that that is something that we can all start doing tomorrow. Let's just wake up and let's ask Jesus, give me more joy of your joy. Give me more of your joy. Because we know that joy is really found only in Him, that any joy we experience in the world is because He created it, that it's Him in everything that gives us joy. It's a fruit of His Spirit. So I love that idea. So let's all pray for joy. Let's
Yes,
ask Him for it.
absolutely. And I know you're a Tara Lee Cobble fan because we actually met in
Yes.
person, seeing her speak.
Yes.
Um, and she does this thing called the Bible recap, and she goes
Hmm.
through the Bible in a year, and then does like a 8 minute podcast, kind of recapping each day's readings. And she ends every single podcast with "He's where the joy is." And
Mm.
sometimes her closing line right before that is, even though today was a really downer day of scripture, like when Job lost everything, she's like, even in the crappy days, He's where the joy is. It is there.
Mm.
So just looking for it and asking Him for it, I really think He'll give it to you.
That's so good. Well, Laurel, thank you so much for being on the show. It was just a joy to have you and to get to have this conversation. Tell us where we can find you if people want to connect with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I am online. If you go to www.thehiveblog.com, you can get to all of my channels, quote unquote, which is really just Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, I am Laurel underscore at underscore the hive. And then same on Facebook. But my blog, which is the website, is kind of where I post kind of a catalog of things that I want to remember. Um,
Yeah.
online and that I can pin on Pinterest. I'm also on Pinterest.
Oh, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Well, we'll put some links in today's show notes so that you guys can go and connect with Laurel and continue to be inspired on how to find joy in life's everyday, ordinary moments. You guys, we're so glad you join us week after week. It's our joy that you would take your time to spend some time with us. Let's start asking Jesus for more joy. Let's start tomorrow. Friends, we'll see you back next week. Friends, it's my honor and privilege to get to spend time with you week after week. It is such a joy that you would choose to be a part of our conversation here on the podcast. You are such an important part of what we do. If you like what you hear, I would invite you to share it, pass it along, text this episode to a friend, like, rate, and subscribe to our show. What you do makes a difference. And remember, friend, we're cheering you on.